Hofstetter Kurt is one of the best-known Viennese contemporary artists that exposes currently his products in Vienna, his pieces of art in Vienna. He is an artist who usually works in the public space. He has done really great things here in Vienna. As I already mentioned, he has studied mathematics in Innsbruck. He's originally from Upper Austria, and then he went to Innsbruck. He studied music and mathematics. And then he got interested in art, and now for many years he has been an artist, but most of his artistic production is strongly influenced by mathematics. And so this was one example, and he will continue to tell us a little bit about these aperiodic stylings, but he will also mention other things. Kurt is a true Renaissance man. He's a composer, he's a mathematician, he's an artist, a philosopher, whatever you can think, Kurt is, and he does everything very well. That's the most important, most interesting thing. So Kurt, please.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, but I have to make something clear. Of course, I'm not a mathematician. I'm really fascinated in mathematics. I have studied mathematics, but I'm not standing up every day in the morning and I'm doing mathematics, I'm doing art. So I will now go back into the year 1989. So I did a small step in a view, I think an extension view on the pendulum, and this small step had an incredible impact in my artistic activities. If you view the small pendulum swings quickly. A more longer pendulum swings more slowly. An indefinite long pendulum swings indefinite slowly. So an indefinite pendulum stops moving. So of course you can't draw this indefinite, infinite pendulum. So, but you can simply draw two parallel lines just directed to the infinite distant point. And this pendulum can only be symbolized and consisting of two parallel lines directing to the infinite distant point and a circle. This symbol, more than less this icon, artistically I've derived 2 congruent 0. If you interpret these 2 parallel lines with 1 plus 1 is 2, and it is congruent to 0, the circle is a 0. So this is quite an artistic fascination, but and it comes also into being to study ANSYS parallelism and circulation. And what I found out in public space, in the year 1993, I have realized a media art installation where this parallelism and circulation are really obviously experienced by me. If I have visited the station Vienna Middle in Vienna, especially the connecting gateway between the sub platforms and rail platforms. There were 100,000 people moving every day in circulation. And I have prepared a small video I did in 1993. Please apologize for the quality. So people are moving in a gateway, in a connecting gateway between the rail platforms and the sub platforms in the Vienna station, middle substation, Landstraße. Every day 100,000 people are coming via railway to this station, going to the sub platforms through the connecting gateway. And the camera, this fisheye converter, depicting these commuters, and the gateway is looking like a planet in a computer-generated universe. Around this circulation of human behavior, because in the evening the commuters went back, they are commuting back from the sub-platforms to the rail platforms. And around this planet, 3 moons are moving around, depicting the time. So, these so-called time moons are depicting the local time. The commuters itself depict time, and their steps can be heard as the ticking of time. People can experience this monitoring of human behavior in public space in a clock phase of a pendulum clockwork. And on all platforms, on 2 sub-platforms and 2 rail platforms, you can see, you can experience these clock phases. And the pendulum itself, you can also formally found these parallel lines and the circles. These parallel lines are directing to the infinite distant point, right where they begin and end. The next installation I have realized dealing with parallelism and circulation was the installation One Moment of Time at Vienna Station South. I've also prepared a small video. Yes, 2 computer-controlled eyes are hanging, are placed right and left to the 2 moving belts leading from and to the platforms. And they are facing each other and communicating via the closing and opening of their eyelids. It's a time that will pass from one pupil to the other opposite pupil. And people are standing on these moving belts and could experience this communication, which is completely processed randomly. And even there are 2 separate computer systems. And whenever the time is passed from one pupil to the other, during the flight, the other computer has the right to decide, no, I do not want the time. And whenever the computer decides they do not want the time is immediately shown back. So this is a very, very crucial thing, because it's a sound installation in public space, and through this saying no in this communication initiates some chaotic and some vivid state. And I think this was responsible for that this installation was more than 15 years permanently installed there. Now it is installed at the ZKM, Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe, which again, parallelism and circulation can be experienced. The 2 eyes are not facing each other, they are looking to the same infinite distant point to close the circle. In 1996, it's more than less the biggest project I've ever began. It's called Sun Pendulum. Even to realize parallelism and circulation in its everyday life, in its cosmos. I was going around the Earth in 12 different time zones to install a video camera just facing the sky, just directed towards the sky. These video cameras are connected online to the internet, and on a certain place on Earth, 12 screens are set up in a circle, connected online via internet with the 12 time eyes. This is the name of these 12 cameras around the Earth. And the sun clock is being created. Of course, more than less, 6 of the monitors transmit day, and on the opposite, 6 transmit night. And with the rotation of the Earth, the sunlight is moving the inner circle of the screens. This is quite, this can be told very shortly, but if you want to realize this project, it turns out that it was a real huge effort to do it. And fortunately, I had a very close collaboration with the Vienna University of Technology and all the other universities listed in the 12 time zones, which are still collaborating with me in this project. Of course, it is a long-term project to realize, and in this period, the realization period, I have used the sky streams in artistic installations, in so-called extensive imaging installations, where I've created end-static, I call it end-static moving images, by using just grayscale images, and I've used these grayscale images just to identify alpha channel, to identify these grayscale images as alpha channels for overlapping sky streams. And preferably, I have used sky streams which are complementary streams. So that means that they are 12 hours apart. For example, this grayscale image of Barbara's lips, which is also here to see in live. These lips are now used as alpha channels, and the sky streams over Cairo and Hawaii, on Maui, are overlapped to create this image. And of course, this is a constant refreshing and regenerating method, and it's a vivid installation. And I was really artistically intended to do it that way, that nobody knows what's going on in the very next moment, but in a way of end-static, in a way. This is another one, it's called sea light pendulum, complementary light pendulum, where one sky is superimposed in the complementary 12 hours apart sky in a central circular field. Another installation I did in the Biennale in Sevilla, it's called Circum C. In the center of the space, I have installed a big balloon made of latex, and from one side I'm projecting dusk sky, and from the other side I'm projecting dawn sky image streams, and people could move around this in this complementary light situation. Yes, it's about the Sunbend and Pavilion. I had to do the ground plan, I had to do the geometry of the ground plan, and I've used 24 half cylinders to set up in a circle just for protecting these 12 screens, protecting that not any sample is allowed to enter the inner space. I just would have the artificial light as the main player inside this pavilion. I didn't want to interfere with daylight and sunlight. So I have created a construction with these 24 half cylinders. These 24 half cylinders are geometrically positioned by, again, parallelism and circulation. they are shifted in parallel by the radius of its semicircular profile and form entry points in all directions. Because, you know, the sun is public. The sun does not know day or night. So the sun pendulum must also be installed in public space, 24 hours open in all directions. Inside the pavilion, I call it the state of ubiquitous time with reference to timeless space. Of course, you have midday in front of you, midnight behind you, evening on the right and morning on the left, and you have all the time there. I have done the geometry on the sun pendulum station 5, which is the name of the sun pendulum pavilion. Here, the geometry plan, you see that one circle is parallel by its radius, creating another circle, and this is the main process in doing this geometry. And this is a very archaic thing, that the intersecting of two circles, Paul Klee has titled this the geometry of interpenetration. So where just one circle is shifted by its radius to create another circle, and the intersecting lens forming area is called Quasicrystals. Is a very ancient symbol for fertility, and you can find it in ancient churches and so on. So the base process was just shifting one circle in parallel by its radius. So as I've discovered that if you are doing the same shifting with the circles with the diameter, so shift one diameter circle, I mean the circle with the radius of the diameter, by the radius, then the result will be 4 intersecting points, and these 4 intersecting points are following the golden section. I mean, in this image, the major CD to the minor DX is exactly the golden section. And this very simple construction was not known in science. It was really very, very fascinating for me to realize that. And it takes, I think, 3 years of communication that this new construction of the golden section has been published in a mathematical magazine, in a mathematical journal. But I was fascinated for the simplicity of this construction. And this is a paper I got in 2002, and it's, of course, a construction just using ruler and compass. And the upper and on top and bottom intersecting point are, of course, the only 2 centers with the base circles which touch the very first parallel base circles. And in this construction, what can I say? I'm experimenting. I'm just experimenting, and I was doing the experiment to interpret this black full line marked circles as balls, as steel balls. And I found out that using the golden ratio, using the golden section, the proportion of the golden section, it always turns out some extreme things, some extreme states, some extreme proportions, some extreme experiences. And with these three poles, I have also a strong feeling of stability and instability. And I put it on a very sensitive public space. And this was a very important thing for me, to communicate this extreme experience of simultaneousness, of stability and instability. I've also geometrically studied these three poles with lines just going through this sculpture, and I found out that the golden section appears in so many lines, and all these lines I've marked on the sculpture, the golden section appears. For more clear, I will show you where the golden section appears here. The red segment will be the major, and the blue segment will be the minor. This was quite astonishing. And even this. And even this. And after I've discovered this, I got another paper which was also not known. Another construction, a very, very simple construction of the golden section, which was also not known in mathematics. And I got the paper, and this is also embedded now in the Wikipedia world. And yes, it was quite fascinating for me to see, to experience this simple, unknown thing. Okay. Now back to the inductive rotation. This is, of course, whenever I've started to experiment with geometry, geometric constructions and patterns, it will immediately come to the heart of the matter to have it in my vivid way, in an uncertain way, in a random way, in a more vividness, in a more vivid way. And of course, I have known the very fascinating tiling of Roger Penrose, just using two tiles. So I was stimulated to experiment with one tile. And I found out the inductive rotation just using one single tile. And there are three simple recursive methods, as Dirk has already mentioned, to create aperiodic but also asymmetric tilings. This is also a very, very crucial thing, because I think the human behavior is always searching for symmetry, and so some kind of dynamic and vivid experience can be initiated if you have an asymmetric pattern. So there are the two-step inductive rotation method, applying rotation in two steps based on one single star figure, which is structured in six comprises. The three-step inductive rotation method you have already heard about from Dirk. Applying rotation in three steps based on one single square structured in four subsquares. The five-step, applying rotation in five steps based on one single hexagonal figure structured in six equilateral triangles. For any iteration of the recursive process, a pivot is chosen on the figure, where clones 2, 3, or 5 are rotated, each one successively, and at the same time put each one behind the other. And this is a very fascinating thing due to the precise overlapping of the figures. A parallel, only one parallel hidden layer is coming into being, which is also aperiodic and is also asymmetric. So, here again a small explanation of the recursive process. Maybe I can skip this. So, now I was experimenting with this generating process, with these generations. And in 2008, I've used the square I call the elementary wave. And if I use this tiling is generated. And this tiling is that what I have already mentioned, that once you look at this pattern, you find another way through the pattern, and you are steadily searching for a symmetry, but it's not a symmetry, steadily searching for a period portion, but it's not period. So I was really convinced at that time that it is really aperiodic, but I couldn't have any mathematical proof of that. But I have talked to Dirk in very long phone talks, and he was really, he didn't pick up, he didn't put down the phone. This was very, very necessary, I think. So I've also exhibited this elementary wave pattern in the big exhibition at Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna, where I have realized this pattern as a facet of a so-called Nageltower. Adolf Gerngross, Viennese architect, has created the Nageltower skyscraper building for the Oman country, and at that time I came to him and talked about the new patterns, and he finally decided, together with Franz West, to accept this tiling, this pattern as a facade of the Nageltower. This is a two-step inductive rotation method, quite close to the elementary wave of the three steps. This is also a two-step inductive rotation pattern. Also this I did by hand, and then I was coming to the Institute of Computer Graphics and Algorithms at the Vienna University of Technology, and they were fascinated about this project and helped me to fulfill two master theses on that topic, and the students have developed the software, the algorithm software for doing this inductive rotation patterns. And this was a completely different work environment for me. Simply press one button and you have the pattern already realized. It's completely different to do it step by step by hand. But in a way, it was not the distillates. The result was not so quick as you can imagine if you have an algorithm and a program. Then I have realized that the Oriental world did 1,000 years researching maybe in this abstract geometric ornaments, and I have used through this program, I've got found footage. For example, I have used a very traditional Oriental icon from an ornament and doing the inductive rotation, the three-step inductive rotation method on it, and this pattern is coming out. This is quite a fascinating thing that I have done it again by hand via paper collage. I have produced 1,000 copies of this traditional Oriental icon and did the inductive rotation method by hand with these papers. And I got the chance to have an exhibition at the Georg Art Museum last December, and I presented some patterns there. First, they were really fascinated about this extension, a dynamic extension of this very traditional ornament work, but at the end, I think they denied it. They had a little bit worry about because of the asymmetry. I have also presented the textile there, and this is another very fascinating interdisciplinary cooperation with the Federal Center of Testing Center of Textiles and IT here in Vienna, so-called Bundesanstalt für Textil und Informatik. And yes, now what's the base? The base thing is a square with two lines, again parallel lines. And if you are doing the inductive rotation with these parallel lines, it turns this pattern out. And I've realized there's an aperiodic rhythm of tensed and not tensed areas. And I have realized first this pattern with lamellas, these wooden lamellas, and they were hanging in our living space, I think, years over years. And finally, I wanted to interpret these sculptures as structures, textile structures, weaving structures. And I was coming to the Bundesanstalt to have these structures realized. And whenever they have seen these structures, they told me that they have never seen such a weaving structure, and this kind of aperiodic weaving was not really thought, because the weaving techniques are based on so-called rapports of so-called periods. And through this method, the Bundesanstalt have realized, successfully realized, and have produced those textiles, and of course they have proved the properties of this textile in comparison to all other weaving techniques, and it turns out that a lot more these textiles, the inductive rotation, aperiodic woven textiles, are very the air permeability is up to 80% more, and the tear resistance is really notable. I mean, between 10 and 20%. So this was quite fascinating for me to create a new weaving technique. There are 4 weaving techniques already known in mankind. This is plain, twill, satin, and creep. And now a fifth new weaving technique was born, and it's quite artistically spoken a stimulation to work on these textiles. And I've also got one here. You can maybe afterwards have a touch on it. It's a very first aperiodic woven textile. So these are the, yes. And now finally I come to the end of my lecture here. Again, I have already mentioned that there is simultaneously generated a parallel hidden layer, which is also an aperiodic and also an asymmetric pattern. And now I have experimented with tiles, proto-tiles, squares, where transparent areas are allowed. And through these transparent areas, you can have a look behind to the background layers. And this is one I have specially designed for the CD book Zart unter Cantata Möbius, because I have the first premiere, the first performance of my Möbius cantata was in 2008, and then I would the publication, and this was the cover for the CD book of Zart unter Cantata Möbius. In this cantate, I've composed using Möbius sounds, so-called Möbius sounds. Möbius sounds are units which sounds identically playing forward and playing backwards. And to compose only with Möbius sounds, this was a very, very intensive experience for me, and I did a two years experiment, more than less, to compose the Möbius cantata Zart. And now I would like to please follow me to the installation Dream Streams, which I've realized with Barbarossa. It's a video installation, but in this installation mostly I've used Möbius sounds. And you have the chance to follow me up, and I will switch on the loudspeakers to hear this Möbius sound. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Should we first have maybe? Yeah. I mean, if you have any question, I think everything was very clear because it was artistic. Let me just say, I mean, of course, Kurt is very modest. He says, I'm not a mathematician, but he is certainly, he's knowledgeable in geometry, in different other types of mathematics, in recursive rules, etc. So for sure he would have been granted access to the Platonic Academy. So that I want to say. So thank you very much for this. And if there are any questions, let's answer this first, and then you can follow Kurt. Yes. And then we can go to the coffee break afterwards. Okay. Okay. So please come forward, Dustin. This is architect Dustin Tuzlovic. I don't know all of you, but I know several of you. This is Dustin.
Thank you. Hello.
Who came from South Africa just for this event today.
And I'm glad I did. Thanks to both of you. This is absolutely fascinating. My question would be, and I was very shocked when I saw your weaving technique. Could you reproduce your patterns, the rotated tiling pattern, with small pieces of wood? I'm asking for a simple reason. I'm Austrian, and here we've got big, straight, long timber. You can make wonderful floors, you can make wonderful Wohnbauten with good wood. And then you come to South Africa, we grow cheap Australian pine that grows very fast, but it's not very strong. How can we combine small pieces of wood into a pattern? Because I see the strength that you could do, but if you overlay things too often, what is it going to look like? I would love to experiment on that. Have you done anything in that direction?
Yes, as you have seen, I've done a wooden piece with the lamellas.
Yes.
I've done this structure. And actually, it was just for us, for Barbara and me, to experience this pattern in our living space. So I can't say how the static properties will turn out.
But I think that would work very well. It would be very interesting to use small pieces and combine them and make big pieces and make them structurally sound.
Yes, there's one.
I'll give you my card later.
Okay.
So this is a new cooperation.
Another question.
Another question? Please come forward.
I just have a simple question.
This is Professor Kurt Strotzin from the Technical University. So I know most people here.
Very naive question to you is, you're mentioning
Nobody hears you.
My very naive question is, you mentioned that there is an improvement in resistance to tearing apart. Now my question is this true for all directions? And because you mentioned it's 20% or so. Because I would doubt that. I would say it may be that it's uniform in 2D, but it's not uniform if you have the standard building techniques. So the question is really to specify what do you mean by tearing resistance.
Yes, this was also very astonishing for me, but the Bundesanstalt have proved the tear resistance, and it turns out in both directions, in all directions, the tear resistance are really notably better.
In all directions?
In all directions. Because the aperiodic is not only in one direction, this is also in the second direction. And if you use the parallel hidden layer, which is more or less a complementary layer, which is also aperiodic, then you are incredibly resistant. I think the main thing is like, this anti-block systems, this ABS. Of course, the more air permeability will exist because of I'm just leaving fibers. Ich habe einfach Fäden ausgelassen. And this is the reason why it is more up to 80% more air permeability. But also an astonishing thing is that the Höchstzugkraft, I don't know the English word, the Höchstzugkraft is also identical to the Ader. Und die Festigkeit der Flächengebilde ist gleich geblieben. Das ist wahrscheinlich der noch erstaunlichste Eigenschaftstest in diesem Textil. And I've got patents. Patents are now registered, and they are also thinking of so-called Faserverbundwerkstoffe, because you have textile concretes and so on, and other Kohlenstofffaserverbundwerkstoffe, and in this field, this textile can be used and maybe, hopefully, more useful for mankind.